I would like to introduce Math Fails to you, a way to spark math conversations the moment your students walk in the door. So let's start with this. Can you spot the math fail? Chances are you're not going to buy 2 mangoes. You're going to buy one because one mango is $1.69. But if I were to buy 2 mangoes, I'm going to pay $2.50 per mango. It doesn't sound like much of a manager's special. So let me introduce myself. Hi, I am Heather with Moving Towards Mastery. I am a busy teacher just like you. I love exploring the great outdoors with my 3 teenagers. I especially love gardening. I love to get cozy with a good movie or book, and I especially love math. I've been teaching for 26 years. I love changing the attitudes of middle school students. You and I both know they walk in the door with a preconceived idea of whether they're going to love math or hate math. I find it my challenge to really work alongside those that have walked in the door hating math, whether it's because their mom hated math or they just had a bad experience, but I love working with them until they realize that math really isn't all that bad. I can't wait to share some math fails with you. So, why are math fails a great idea for warm-ups? Well, there's no better way to get students' attention than to say an adult has made a mistake. So, math fails are just a great way to get everyone interested. So, just as I started with you checking out the manager special, if you're looking for a mistake, you tend to be paying close attention. Another reason to use math fails is I can specifically relate real world back to my in-class content. For example, with this math fail, you can notice that this is a great conversation piece about integers and why integers are useful in everyday life. Another reason for math fails is to avoid that question, when will I ever use this in class? Again, in my real world, when will I ever use this? I don't know how many times I've heard that question, but there was an especially challenging student who one year, every new skill that I introduced, the hand was up and he wanted to know how was he going to use it. His motivation depended on how I answered that question. I eventually came up with a response that I'm not your fortune teller. I don't know your career choice. I don't know what you're going to do for the rest of your life. So I can't tell you whether or not you're going to use this math in your everyday life. However, I informed him that I knew he would have to use it to pass 8th grade and be able to move on to high school. Now, that was not the answer I was happy giving him, but I, with time, tried to find more and more ways to incorporate real life into everyday math, specifically because of how he challenged me. Another reason to use math fails is to prepare students to be better consumers in their everyday life. I remember when I was at a restaurant, standing a few people behind a student who was in line, and you could feel the anxiety on the student. It was like she was looking at her wallet, and then she would look at the menu, and she would look at her wallet, and she would look at the menu, almost as if it was like, I've got $10, but I don't know how much that's going to be with tax. And she was so filled with anxiety, and I want to relieve a little bit of that stress for my students when they're out shopping and being a consumer. So this example really helps to prepare them, to remind them that just because a sign says it's a deal doesn't always mean it's the deal you're expecting. So we talk about, is this price too high? Is it too low? How could we determine the right price? They love to use the word scam. They're certain that a business is scamming them, but we talk about how to appropriately approach someone if we feel like there is actually a math fail when we're purchasing something. So great everyday interaction, real life application. Another reason to use math fails is to help build a growth mindset. When students realize everyone makes mistakes, it allows them to realize that their mistakes aren't critical. They can continue working, continue striving, and grow to be a better math student. So how do I use math fails? In my classroom, I've used them in a variety of ways. I use them most often as a Math Fail Friday. With my regular scheduled class, I use them by projecting them on the screen for the first moments that they're walking in class. Now, I don't want them talking the moment they're walking in. I want them to kind of come in and get settled and allow me some time to take attendance, prepare for the lesson. But I do have the Math Fail provided. I ask them to independently stop, think, answer the questions that are on the screen in their warm-up binder. After about 3 to 5 minutes, I then ask them to share their responses. So we have a class-wide conversation. We see if everybody's thinking the same thing. Are there some deep underlying questions, things they didn't know, or insightful thinking? Be prepared. They'll have questions. Be prepared. There's things they don't know. They don't have all the experiences we have, but sometimes they have a deeper range of knowledge that you're not expecting. So, for example, when I presented the mango, I had a student raise their hand and say, I thought that was eggs. What is a mango? They didn't understand why the eggs were green and red. They had no concept of what they were even shopping for. Another time I presented this one for integers, and I expected, hey, there's no -0. And I expected the conversation to pretty much end there. However, it was beautiful to see someone raise their hand and say, well, maybe they don't mean -0. Maybe they mean the range of numbers between -1 and -9. We talked about, was there a better way to represent that? Because with -10s, we knew that would be -10, -11, -12. We had good conversations. We thought about the best way to represent that. Was that the correct way of representing that? But it was a much deeper conversation that I had even intended to happen for that day. So once the math fail has been presented, students are engaged. They're ready to move on to the lesson for the day. Now, that is the main way I use math fails. I've also used math fails with my remediation class that I see on a short-term basis. And I will use a set of math fails that are specifically geared to a content layer area, and I use them every day, and then we review that skill throughout the week. So math fails can be used once a week. They could be used daily, just depending on the purpose behind what you want from a math fail. So if you want to incorporate math fails into your everyday or your once a week routine, and you don't know where to start, you can start by just simply Googling math fails, and you'll find a wealth of images. Now, I will warn you, sometimes those images can be fake, and sometimes it was just a great photo opportunity for someone. As you see here, the one's placed in front, but it's also a great math conversation. What would 130% off look like? Is that even possible? So it's not completely a waste of time. Also, be on the lookout in your everyday life. This is a picture from my own kitchen. I've used these square snack bags again and again, and then one day I noticed they're not squares, they're rectangles. The dimensions, the fine print, proves that they're actually not square. But I've also become known as the math fail teacher. I've had coworkers and social media friends send me images or send me newspaper flyers of math fails, even a book fair flyer that had a math fail in it. If you're beginning to look for a specific skill and you want to use that in a specific lesson, check out my resources on Teacher Pay Teachers at Moving Towards Mastery. I have several different skill-related math fails ranging from number sense to geometry. And finally, best of all, I have a sample set for you that's ready to go. You could try right away. So I can't wait to hear what you think. Once you download the math fails, try them with your students and let me know. Do you love them? Do you enjoy that conversation? Do you feel your kids are better prepared for everyday life? Can't wait to hear how math fails go for you. Thanks for joining me.